Shirley MacLaine has finally come clean about her family. The star just explained why she and Warren Beatty didn't talk for years. She called him the beautiful one. But behind closed doors, they were fighting over Daddy's drinking problem, UFO sightings, and Hollywood jealousy. She now says she completely underestimated him, which is what ended their relationship. The shocking truth about Hollywood's famous siblings is messier than anyone thought. Shirley MacLaine was born in Richmond, Virginia on April 24, 1934. Her family was middle class, but they had big. Her father, Ira Owens Bay, was a psychology professor, school administrator, and real estate agent, and he also played music for fun. Her mother, Kathleen Corin Bay, was a drama teacher from Nova Scotia. She had a dreamy personality and a deep love for the arts, so she named her daughter Shirley, after Shirley Temple. Shirley grew up in a home where discipline and creativity clashed. Her father was strict and often absent, and her mother pushed her to be creative. Shirley's parents expected a lot from her, which made her become independent at a young age. In 1937, her younger brother Warren was born. He would go on to become a famous actor and director. Their relationship was both competitive and supportive, which shaped them in different ways as they pursued their careers. Shirley often said she had an orphan mentality because her parents were busy with their own lives, so she had to figure things out on her own. Shirley was 11 years old when she started taking buses and streetcars by herself to get to school and ballet class. These trips alone gave her time to think about life in a way that most kids didn't. It was the middle of World War II, and money was tight. Shirley's family wasn't poor, but things were hard. Instead of feeling sorry for herself, she used her problems as motivation to dream bigger. Shirley's love of performing began when she was 2.5 years old. Her mother put her in ballet to help strengthen her weak ankles, but what started as a simple health fix turned into something much bigger. Dance became her escape. It gave her structure, discipline, and a way to express herself. By the time she was 16, she was dancing with the Washington School of Ballet and pushing herself to the limit. Before going on stage as the fairy godmother in a performance of Cinderella, she broke her ankle. But she didn't give up. She wrapped her ribbons tighter and danced anyway. She was determined in that moment, which would later shape her career. Even though Shirley was focused on her own dreams, she was also a fierce protector, especially when it came to Warren. She took care of him and defended him when he got into trouble. They spent a lot of time together going to the movies and dreaming about the future. As they got older, they went their separate ways in Hollywood, but their bond never faded, even when Warren was caught in the famous Oscar mix-up and accidentally won an award. Shirley MacLaine knew what she wanted from a young age. She went to Washington Lee High School in Arlington, Virginia, but school never felt like her true calling. Instead of waiting to graduate, she took a chance and dropped out, moving to New York City to try to make it as an actress on Broadway. It was a big move for someone so young, but she wasn't afraid of the unknown. At age 18, she got a part in the chorus of Me and Juliet, which ran from 1953 to 1954. It was her first time on Broadway, but she wanted more. In 1954, she became Carol Haney's understudy in The Pajama Game. She knew this could be her big chance, so she cut her hair short to look more like Haney in case the role ever opened up. She wanted to be ready for it. And it did. Just days after the show's premiere, Haney broke her ankle during a Wednesday matinee. MacLaine was called to fill in, and with little time to prepare, she took the stage and gave a performance that, during this time, money was tight. So she often ate at automats, where meals were only a few cents, but she didn't let that stop her. She kept performing, and by June 1954, Haney had recovered. MacLaine could have gone back to being an understudy, but something amazing happened. Producer Hal B. Wallace saw her on stage and was so impressed that he immediately signed her to a 5-year contract with Paramount Pictures. That was the end of her Broadway days. Her discovery was a mix of talent and luck. Jerry Lewis, a comedian, was in the audience that night and was so impressed that he told Wallace to see her perform. Wallace did as he said, and after seeing her live, he knew she was a star. He offered her $200 a week, which was a good amount for a newcomer, but her agent negotiated it up to $600. In just a few weeks, she went from being an understudy on Broadway to a rising star in Hollywood. Her film debut was Harry, 1955, a dark comedy directed by Alfred Hitchcock when she was 20 years old. Along with John Foria and Edmund Gwenn, MacLaine gave a standout performance. Critics praised her charm, and she won a Golden Globe for New Star of the Year. Before she went to Hollywood, she made a small but important change. She was born Shirley MacLaine Bay. But another actress named Shirley Beatty was already registered with the Actors Equity Association. To avoid confusion, she chose to use her mother's maiden name, becoming Shirley MacLaine. It was a fitting name choice. Her mother, Kathleen Karen Bay, had been a drama teacher who loved poetry and theater. Her younger brother, Henry Warren Bay, later did the same thing when he entered Hollywood. He became Warren Beatty by 1958. MacLaine had proven herself as more than just a rising star. That year, she earned her first Academy Award nomination for Some Came Running, the film directed by Vincent Minnelli, starring Frank Sinatra as Dave Hirsch, a troubled Army veteran, and Dean Martin as his gambler friend. Bama Diller MacLaine played Jenny Mode, a kind-hearted, but Jenny is a naive woman who falls in love with Dave. MacLaine's performance was unforgettable. Jenny loved deeply, even when it put her in danger. She was weak, but never weak. Her story ended tragically when she gave her life to save Dave in the movie's final scene. Critics praised MacLaine for giving the role depth, making what could have been a one-dimensional character into a real person. The movie was nominated for several Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Supporting Actor for Arthur. But it was McCann's performance that made the biggest impression over the years. MacLaine was known for making risky decisions. One of the most surprising was when she turned down the part of Princess Leia in Star Wars 1977. The part went to Carrie Fisher, who made it famous. Other actors might have felt bad about passing on such a huge franchise, but MacLaine never did. It might seem like a strange choice now that Star Wars is one of the most popular movies of all time, but MacLaine had always chosen roles that Star Wars wasn't right for her. She was drawn to complicated characters with deep emotions. She didn't feel bad about leaving, and she didn't regret it. In 1960, she starred in The Apartment, a movie that became one of the biggest hits of the year. She played Fran Kubelik, an honest but troubled elevator operator caught in a complicated romance. The movie won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, and was the 8th highest-grossing movie of the year. She stood out. She brought humor and sadness to the role, making it feel real and relatable. For her work, she was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress, one of 10 nominations the film received. 3 years later, she played a Parisian prostitute who falls in love with a naive police officer in Irma Louise 1963. The film was controversial at the time, but audiences loved it and it became a big hit. MacLaine received another Oscar nomination, making her one of the few actresses to get nominated for 2 awards in a row. These 2 movies showed that she had a lot of range. She could be funny, sad, and brave all at the same time. But early in her career, Hollywood liked to put actors in boxes. She was called a tomboyish sex symbol, which she didn't like. She wanted serious roles that would push her. Determined to break free, she studied at Lee Strasberg's studio and got her big break in 1961 when she played a teacher who was accused of a crime. At the time, the movie dealt with controversial topics that weren't often seen in Hollywood. MacLaine's performance was honest and heartbreaking, and she slowly showed that she could play complicated roles and go against expectations. By the 1970s, MacLaine had earned multiple Oscar nominations, but she wasn't done pushing the limits. In 1976, she played a woman with dissociative identity disorder in the TV movie. The role was risky, as mental health wasn't usually talked about in movies, and many studios tried to avoid it. MacLaine accepted the challenge. She played 16 different characters with great depth, bringing their struggles to life. Her performance changed how mental illness was shown on screen and earned her an Emmy. In 1977, she took on another difficult role in The Turning Point, which was about a former ballet dancer who quit her career to raise her family. The role required a lot of physical preparation, and behind the scenes, she was secretly dealing with an eating disorder and felt pressure to keep up a dancer's body. But she never let it show on screen. Her performance was one of her best. She captured the conflict of a woman torn between her past and present, earning her another Oscar nomination. Then, in 1983, after 5 nominations but no wins, she finally won the Academy Award for Terms of Endearment. She played Aurora Greenway, a mother dealing with the ups and downs of life with her daughter Deborah Winger. The movie was a huge hit. MacLaine won 5 Oscars and made $165 million worldwide. When she accepted her award, she famously said, "I deserve this." It wasn't just a win for one role. It was the result of years of hard work, taking risks, and being strong in an industry that often overlooked women over 40. Shirley MacLaine married producer Steve Parker in 1954. Their relationship wasn't traditional. Parker moved to Japan 2 years after their wedding and became a well-known figure in Tokyo's cyclic during that time. Lan stayed in Hollywood to work on her career. They were together for almost 30 years, but they lived apart for most of that time. Their marriage was famously open, which Lan talked about with great honesty. She later said that they chose to live apart and see other people because they were more like close friends than a typical couple. Instead of following the traditional idea of marriage, they agreed to live apart and see other people. Lan believed that love wasn't about ownership. She knew that possessiveness and jealousy destroyed relationships, so she and Parker made their own rules. She openly admitted, "I guess you could say we practiced an open marriage in 1954, which was another lifetime." At the time, people were shocked to hear about it, but for Lan, it made perfect sense. She thought their unconventional arrangement would keep them together longer than a traditional marriage ever could. Lan also talked honestly about her many affairs during their 28-year marriage. She had relationships with a number of famous men, including French politician François Mitterrand, who later became president of France. She called him one of the most interesting men she had ever met, and their relationship grew during her trips to Europe, where they shared deep conversations and philosophical views. MacLaine never saw these affairs as betrayals. She and Parker understood each other, and neither felt the need to hide their other relationships. Looking back, she had no regrets. She believed that personal freedom was essential to emotional health. While MacLaine embraced independence in her marriage, her approach to motherhood was more complicated. When her daughter Stephanie Sucho Sachi Parker was born in 1956, she was sent to live with Parker in Japan for years, instead of being raised in Hollywood. MacLaine balanced her career with occasional visits to stay involved from a distance. She later said that motherhood was her greatest role, but not her only one. Sachi, on the other hand, had a different view. In her memoir, Lucky Me, My Life with and Without My Mom, Shirley MacLaine, she wrote that many of Sachi's claims were not true, but Lan did say that balancing motherhood and ambition is hard. Their stories started debates about the sacrifices women make when they have to choose between family and career. Even though they were married, Lan and Parker's relationship ended in 1982. It wasn't because of an affair, but because of the secrecy surrounding it. After almost 30 years together, Lan found out that Parker had fathered a child with a different woman, Japanese geisha. This was something she couldn't accept, because she had always believed in honesty, and Parker's failure to tell her this was a betrayal. She filed for divorce that year, and even after they broke up, she still talked about him lovingly, calling him the love of her life. Their breakup made people wonder if their open marriages could really keep them from being jealous and heartbroken. For MacLaine, the problem wasn't Parker's cheating, but the fact that he had been dishonest. Even decades later, MacLaine defended open marriages in an interview. She said that jealousy was pointless and that love shouldn't be about control. She also said that she thought monogamy set unrealistic expectations that often led to disappointment. She said that her open marriage with Parker was the reason it lasted so long. Not everyone agreed with her, but she wasn't trying to persuade anyone. She just thought people should rethink what love and commitment really meant. Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty grew up in the same house but went in very different directions. Due to Shirley's openness about her family and her autobiographies, where she talked about their father's drinking and views on race, Warren believed those stories were exaggerated and believed they should have stayed private. The tension didn't end there. Warren was also furious when Shirley made fun of his love life on an Oscar show, but Shirley had her own regrets. She didn't see Warren's true potential as an actor when she was younger. She once called him the beautiful one. Hollywood wasn't always easy. Shirley went to ballet school, then Broadway, and then movies. Warren, on the other hand, kept his dreams to himself. When he was 17, he had an epiphany while watching Shirley perform in the Pajama Game. That's when he realized the power of performance. But he didn't tell anyone about his goals. As a child, he was more interested in sports, and he probably thought he wasn't really interested in acting. That all changed in 1961 when he starred in Splendor in the Grass. The movie made him famous and showed he was more than just good looking. Warren was behind the 1967 movie Bonnie and Clyde, which almost brought the Parker siblings together on screen. Shirley was a strong contender for the part of Bonnie Parker, but when Warren decided to play Clyde himself, the producers replaced her with Faye Dunaway because they thought having real-life siblings play lovers would be too awkward. The movie went on to become a cinematic landmark, nominated for 10 Oscars and winning 2. Shirley later said she wasn't angry, but beyond Hollywood, Shirley and Warren couldn't have been more different. Warren was known for his wild relationships with stars like Natalie Wood, Julie Christie, and Madonna. Shirley, on the other hand, was interested in spirituality and wrote books about reincarnation, karma, and past lives. She often made fun of Warren for not being able to settle down, saying that he couldn't even commit to dinner. But when Warren finally married Annette Bening, she was happy for him. Shirley fully supported him in 1992. She told him that Bening was the perfect girl for him and gave him advice that helped keep the relationship strong. MacLaine's journey into metaphysics began with something she never expected. It was 1952, and she was in Washington, D.C. when she saw something strange in the sky. It was during the famous UFO sightings that year when many unidentified objects were tracked on radar and seen by pilots and civilians. It was a big story across the country, but for MacLaine it was more than that. She began to wonder if there was more to life than what people could see and touch, and if humans were connected to something bigger. These questions stayed with her for years and led her to study metaphysics and New Age philosophy at her ranch in New Mexico, where she said she had seen more UFOs. She described these experiences as deeply spiritual and said she believed extraterrestrials weren't just visitors from other planets. They were part of a... Back then, especially for Hollywood stars, talking about UFOs or reincarnation was risky. Most actors avoided topics that could make them look weird or hurt their careers. Ms. Lon didn't care. She talked about her beliefs in interviews and in her books. She talked about meditation and a concept she called superconsciousness, which she thought connected all living things. Some people admired her bravery, while others laughed at her. Late-night comedians made fun of her. People didn't like her ideas, but that didn't stop her. Over the years, her writing became just as popular as her acting. She wrote more than 15 books about spirituality. One of the most famous was Out on a Limb, which came out in 1983 and was a mix of memoir and an exploration of past life regression therapy, trance channeling, and reincarnation. In it, she talked about how hypnosis sessions brought up memories of past lives. She thought she had been a monk in Asia and lived with elephants in India in a previous life. Written about a mysterious man named David based on real people who helped her on her spiritual journey. Through conversations with him, she explored deep questions about life and love. The book became a bestseller and sold over 1.2 million paperback copies. But it also got a lot of negative reviews. Many people thought her stories were too strange to be true, and comedians made fun of her. But some readers saw the book as life-changing, and its success led to a 5-hour ABC miniseries. In 1987, Land shared her spiritual journey on TV in front of millions of viewers. She was no longer just an actress, she had become a major figure in New Age thought. During hypnosis sessions, her past life experiences became even stranger. She said she remembered living in Atlantis and thought she was there when it sank into the ocean. She said the disaster happened because of greed and the abuse of power. She said that extraterrestrials, whom she called star people, had shown her these memories, revealed that Atlantis was once a powerful energy center for Earth. She also thought she had been a concubine in ancient China. Through regression therapy, she talked about the rituals, emotional struggles, and palace life of that lifetime. She saw these past lives as more than just memories. They helped her understand parts of her personality and relationships in the present. She believed that people's experiences in past lives made them who they are today. Not everyone believed her. Many thought her claims were too extreme. People thought her beliefs were crazy, but she insisted that memories of past lives had real meaning. She saw them as lessons that could help people understand their purpose and the connections between all souls. Not only did people criticize her, but her beliefs also drove her younger brother Warren crazy. Warren was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, and he was known for being practical and intellectual. She didn't share her interest in spirituality, and their differences caused problems between them. At one point, he reportedly called her ideas crazy. Their relationship was complicated by more than just spiritual differences. They were both famous, and professional rivalry played a part in their distance. They rarely worked together, and they didn't have many public interactions. But over time, their bond grew stronger. Later, MacLaine said she understood why her brother was skeptical. She believed that each soul had its own path, and hers was just different from hers. Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty are the only siblings in Hollywood history. Mark Shirley won an Oscar for Best Actress in 1987. 1984 for Terms of Endearment, a movie that became a cultural landmark. Her performance as Aurora Greenway, a strong-willed mother navigating love and loss, struck a chord with audiences, and the movie made over $18 million, making it a huge hit at the time. Warren won an Oscar for Best Director in 1981 for Reds, an epic film about journalist John Reed that earned 12 Oscar nominations and got Warren himself nominated for acting. He wrote, directed, and produced 2 movies together, which is something that almost no one else in Hollywood has done. Together, the 2 siblings have been nominated for 20 Oscars, 14 for Warren and 6 for Cher, securing their status as Hollywood royalty. Their long and carefully built careers have earned them a net worth of $50 million. Shirley's career includes decades of acting, writing, and even spiritual teachings. She starred in classics like The Apartment in 1960 and Steel Magnolia in 1989. She also became a best-selling author with books like Out on a Limb, which were about her spiritual beliefs and personal experiences. Warren's net worth is even higher at $70 million thanks to his work producing and directing. He made sure to take on roles where he had creative control, and hits like Bonnie and Clyde and Heaven Can Wait in 1978 added to his wealth. His directing career made him even richer, with Reds being one of his biggest successes. He is still the only person to have been nominated for Oscars for acting, directing, and writing. Even though they both became rich, they did so in very different ways. Shirley went on to host spiritual seminars and charged up to $300 per person to attend her workshops. Warren, on the other hand, focused on big-budget movies that were risky but could pay off big. Their combined net worth of $120 million shows that they were both talented and knew how to work in Hollywood. Shirley is now 90 years old and making what might be her last movie. Places is set to come out in 2026 and was directed by Brad Furman, who is best known for The movie is about an old widow who befriends a homeless man while facing her own death. The production has had money problems, and crew members are reportedly owed a total of $245,000. Warren, who is now 87 years old, has left the movie business. His last movie, Rules Don't Apply, came out in 2016 after a $15 million break and starred Annette Bening and Lily Collins, but it was a flop, making only $3.9 million against its $25 million budget. It was an unexpected end to a successful career. Shirley keeps working because she loves telling stories, and Warren has chosen to stay out of the spotlight. Their careers couldn't be more different, but both changed Hollywood in ways that few others have. 2 siblings from Virginia became legends, showing that talent and hard work can get you to the top.